During the beta testing phase of their soulmate-seeking app, two visionary siblings encounter personal setbacks, threatening their project's progress. Tech genius Esther Vanhove enters a lavish hallway, passing suit-clad men with displayed ratings on them. Further along, she sits down and meets Tom, her perfect match, boasting an impressive score of 4.72 out of 5. However, the cold developer insists on skipping the small talk instead of genuinely getting to know her soulmate. Shortly after, the couple find themselves in a bathtub, sharing an intimate moment. As Esther's experience reaches its peak, her AI assistant Martin abruptly interjects, revealing that the whole thing was a virtual simulation. As the developer removes her VR headset, the computerized voice reminds her she's running late for her brother's meeting. In the conference room, Esther joins her sibling and co-CEO Paul Vanhove to unveil their latest venture, the Osmosis project. It's a dating app that involves ingesting an implant to find one's soulmate. But before releasing it to the public, they must conduct beta tests with 12 selected participants. After the meeting ends, the speaker approaches his sister, who requests 15 beta testers for better research. However, the co-founder explains that their budget constraints can only allow 12. Shortly after, the participants undergo the preparation for the beta testing phase. During the initial procedure, the administrator, Billy Tual, had the testers undergo an MRI examination to assess if any medical conditions could potentially interfere with the implant. Subsequently, the AI assistant Martin interrogates the participants with intrusive questions concerning their intimate lives. Despite the personal nature of these inquiries, most testers remain enthusiastic about the app and are genuinely excited to use it to find true love. Following the interview, the beta testers receive body art that looks like a peace sign on their wrists, which will activate upon the implant ingestion. After placing a patch on the invisible skin drawings, Billy advises the participants that upon removing the covering, they will connect with their soulmate and experience a profound emotional osmosis. Meanwhile, Josephine Vanhove, Paul's dancer wife, already has the implant. Feeling tired after a dance audition, she decides to activate it and connect with her husband. As she touches her body marking, an instant connection is established with her partner, even though they are in separate locations. After experiencing profound emotional osmosis, the dancer returns to her choreographer feeling energized. Following the meeting, Esther heads to the hospital to visit her brain-dead mother, Louise Vanhove. To revive her mother's mind, she attaches an implant to the patient's temple, containing a cherished childhood memory. After playing her mom's favorite song, the developer watches the moment she had with her parent when she was young, hoping it will reignite the vegetative woman's brain. However, Martin advises the tech genius that her attempt was unsuccessful, and no response came from the patient's neural network. This result frustrates the daughter, who has been finding a way to cure her parent. That night, Josephine returns home and excitedly informs Paul that she nailed the tryout, enabling her to have the opportunity to dance in different countries. As Esther is about to enter the Osmosis headquarters the following day, a concerned mother, Cecile Larson, and her son Niels Larson interrupt her. The woman begs the developer to reconsider accepting the teen as a tester despite him having failed the initial selection process. She believes the technology will help cure her son's illness, just like what happened to Paul, who was once in a vegetative state. To help the ill teenager, the tech genius requests an extra tester slot from her brother. However, the co-founder puts the idea on hold as the presentation begins. After gathering the participants, Gabrielle, the CEO secretary, warmly welcomes them and delivers a speech, praising the two siblings for making the project possible. Following this, Billy takes the floor and explains that the implant works like a pill, releasing nano-robots inside someone's brain upon ingestion. The tiny machines inside the capsule pick up a subconscious signal, which the app decodes to connect with social networks and select a profile. Afterward, the technology projects the person's soulmate's face into their mind, helping them discover their perfect partner. Upon hearing this, the excited participants applaud the presentation. In the middle of the meeting, Paul heads out and appoints Gabrielle to facilitate the question and answer session. When a participant asks if osmosis is mystic or scientific, Esther clarifies that it's the latter, explaining that human thoughts and feelings are transmitted through electric impulses and chemical reactions, forming the foundation of the technology. When Anna Stern asks about the technology's safety, security head Swan confidently assures them that the implant has robust barriers, making it unhackable. Afterward, Billy takes over for the contract signing, officially marking the start of the beta testing. Meanwhile, Paul meets with the shareholders, who express their concerns about proceeding with the trials despite their advice not to. However, the CEO stands firm, explaining that delaying the process wasn't practical because the implant was ready, and they had complete confidence in the security system, assuring them it was 100% safe. When the member points out that the Academy of Medicine has imploded and half of the ethics committee has resigned, the founder dismisses her concerns, explaining that it's a good sign when people oppose revolutionary technology. Despite this, the shareholders inform him of their decision to remove him as CEO, believing that someone else is better suited for the position. Though Paul complains, the members remain resolute, revealing they will freeze his assets. In the headquarters, Esther watches Neil's application video and discovers that the teen has an affinity for viewing sensual content. He confesses that his habit has made him a recluse and taken over his life. The applicant believes that through osmosis, he can find someone he loves who will inspire him to change for the better. After confirming with Martin that the aspiring tester has no medical conditions, the tech genius calls Billy to express her interest in the addict's profile. However, the screener explains that Niels only meets 60% of the selection criteria and is underage. In response, Esther asks for reconsideration, proposing they sign a waiver since the teen will turn 18 in 2 months anyway. Upon hearing this, the administrator informs her that she will inquire with the ministry regarding her request. Following the tense meeting, Paul returns to the headquarters. He informs Gabrielle and Esther, lying that the shareholders want to drop them instead of revealing the truth about the desire for a CEO change. He outlines his action plan, which involves expediting the development process and launching the product in the market within a month. When the developer explains that it's not feasible because they haven't expanded their security to accommodate 1 million users, her brother dismisses her concerns, reiterating the need to be ready within a month. Realizing the impossibility of the deadline, Esther proposes that she needs at least 2 months, prompting her co-founder to agree but expressing worries about the financial implications. Upon arriving at the hospital the following day, Esther requests Martin to check which beta tester's MRI has a neural network similar to her mom's. She plans to reprogram the compatible participant's implant to help activate her mom's brain. However, when the AI assistant points out it's illegal, the desperate daughter explains that it's her last chance to save her mom's life. Meanwhile, during their osmosis, Josephine comforts a worried Paul, assuring him he'll find the money they need. When the CEO mentions that Esther must succeed, his wife advises him to tell his sister the truth about their mother. However, he insists that revealing it will only crush his sibling emotionally. The following morning, Gabrielle heads to the office and informs the founder that they have received their latest invoice. Upon realizing that they need to settle their dues in 30 days, Paul tasks his assistant to call the lawyers. However, the secretary points out that their operations will stop if they fail to pay in time, implying that legal action won't solve their problem. As a solution, the assistant proposes that they postpone the beta testing and search for new investors. However, Paul firmly explains that they cannot back down. Quick on his feet, the desperate executive does a live broadcast, announcing that he will launch Osmosis in just 1 month. Upon hearing this, Esther panics and confronts Paul, who reveals that he has mortgaged their mom's house for extra cash. Realizing this, the developer is disappointed with her brother's actions and walks out in frustration. Shortly after, the founder apologizes for his decision, explaining that he only did it out of love for his sister and her creation. Following this, the siblings proceed to the room with the gathered participants who will ingest their implants. If somebody backs out, the reconsidered Niels is on the waiting list and will take over. Upon receiving their boxes, participant Luca notices that his seatmate Anna hesitates to take the pill. Concerned, he reminds her that she can withdraw if she's unsure. However, after mustering her courage, the anxious tester decides to go through with it and eventually ingest the implant. After all the testers have taken the capsule, one of them, Marceau, reacts differently and starts shaking. As a result, he demands the implant's removal, allowing the stand-in to take his slot. Later, the rest of the beta testers, including Niels, have their body markings successfully activated upon ingesting the pill, and they appear to be satisfied with the experience. Meanwhile, Esther discovers that the teenage addict's MRI is compatible with her mother's by 62%. As Martin is about to add more information, his computerized voice suddenly glitches. Promptly, Swan calls the developer's attention, informing her of the attacks against their security system, which started after Paul's TV appearance. After the tech genius fixes the problem, Martin returns and reports to the ladies that their CPU is damaged and their disks need formatting. Later, as Esther troubleshoots, the AI assistant proposes combining Luca, Neil's, and Anna's MRIs to reach 100% compatibility with her mom's neural network. The developer then realizes that she can insert her childhood memory into the three testers' implants, potentially making them converge with Louise's to activate her brain. However, for Martin to carry out this action, he needs authorization to introduce an external memory into the participants' implants. This information prompts the tech genius to contemplate her plan carefully. Meanwhile, Paul returns to his house, shockingly discovering that Josephine left a note instructing him not to look for her. That night, Martin instructs the beta testers to close their eyes and finally witness the faces of their soulmates. As clear images form in their minds, the participants can't help but smile with joy. 3 years ago, Esther inserted an implant in her brother's brain, successfully rousing him from a vegetative state. Coincidentally, he also experiences a vision of his wife, Josephine, whom he met at the dance studio. As a result, the Osmosis project started. In the present, Paul informs a policeman that he has lost contact with Josephine. Despite the cops' belief that the woman's disappearance is intentional, the worried husband suspects it was an abduction. Shortly after, the developer arrives and confirms they cannot track the dancer's implant. This realization devastates the CEO as he comes to terms with the flaws in their technology. In the security room, Esther's team confirms that half of the beta testers have already found their partners. With Martin's guidance, Niels meets Claire Solomon, an art student who mistakenly assumes the teen is an assistant. Meanwhile, Luca, in a relationship with Antoine, discreetly stalks his soulmate Leopold, who is also involved with another person. In the case of the timid and chubby Anna, she meets Simon, a fitness instructor. However, she unintentionally ruins their first encounter with a sarcastic remark. Rather than becoming upset, the sports teacher kindly reminds her to join the free class the following morning, which makes the shy woman smile. Later, a group of artists assemble before a posing statue, ready to sketch its form. As Neil struggles to draw, Claire guides him on how to draw with skill, establishing a meaningful connection between them. Meanwhile, Luca follows his soulmate as he enters a building, where they share an intimate moment. The following day, Anna attends Simon's training. However, she hesitates and refuses when the instructor asks her to jump over the little fences. To encourage her, the fitness teacher promises to read a book by her favorite author. With this motivation, the timid woman gathers her courage and starts doing the exercise. Meanwhile, Esther seeks help from the dark web and gets an update on Josephine's whereabouts. The implant's transmitter stopped working, making the tech genius realize the possibility that her brother's partner had intentionally left. In the headquarters, Billy informs Anna about her brain and hormone, revealing that the participant received the highest rating on the attraction index. However, this raises concerns for the anxious tester, who thinks Osmosis monitors her emotions. In response, the administrator confirms it's solely for test purposes, implying that there will be no monitoring after the product launch. Upon receiving Martin's notification about Paul's imminent arrival, Billy departs the room. Afterward, Anna strangely texts someone about the information she just heard. Meanwhile, Gabrielle inquires with Esther about the ongoing app development process, prompting the developer to respond that she requires 6 months to finish everything despite her brother's tight deadline. Suddenly, the alarm blares when a group of activists gathers outside. After vandalizing the headquarters entrance, the protesters vehemently claim that the implant scrambles people's brains and even throws meat at Paul upon his arrival. In response, the CEO loses control and ends up physically assaulting one of them. Consequently, this camcorded reaction shows up on television, severely impacting the founder's public image and the perception of his product. Shortly after, Gabrielle informs the devastated founder about their financial problem. He then proposes an opportunity that the Mohicans Group, a potential investor, wants to speak with him. Meanwhile, at a restaurant, Anna, who turns out to be a mole, meets up with humanist leader Matthew Christo. When the man inquires about her feelings concerning the implant, the tester candidly expresses that she feels constantly monitored but acknowledges that she is attracted to her soulmate, implying that the technology is quite effective. Before their conversation ends, the spy agrees to execute any request to gather more information about the Osmosis project. In the hospital, Esther visits Louise, only to realize that her mom has decreased brain activity. To save her mom, the anxious developer takes a risky step and authorizes Martin to implant her memories onto Niels, Luca, and Anna as a preparation to connect their neural networks to her mother's. Meanwhile, Paul meets Samuel Khan, the head of the Mohican Group, convincing him to invest in Osmosis. However, during their meeting, the CEO is plagued by distressing visions of Josephine being abducted and tortured. Suddenly, Esther calls calls, notifying her brother that the dancer is nearby. Upon receiving the precise location, the founder hurriedly reaches the tower rooftop, discovering a duplicate of his wife's implant. Frustrated and overwhelmed, he hurls the device, shattering it upon impact. Shortly after, Esther arrives at the scene and finds her disappointed brother. After the executive departs to report his wife's abduction to the police, the tech genius decides to keep the dupe for further investigation. However, on her ride back to the headquarters, the developer receives a distressing call informing her that the humanists have pressed charges against Paul due to the assault incident. Meanwhile, Luca reflects on his encounter with his soulmate at work when his colleague Malia calls his attention. He confides in her, expressing that he doesn't find Osmosis helpful and believes his genuine connection lies with Antoine, who is oblivious to his trial participation. As a result of this reflection, the beta tester decides to have the implant removed the following morning. On the other hand, Neil starts bonding with Claire while washing paintbrushes after their art session. However, the teen's illness is suddenly triggered when he begins to imagine his soulmate undressed. Realizing this, he abruptly walks out, leaving the artist student confused. At the headquarters, Esther examines the duped implant and discovers that Josephine's abductors have erased the serial number, making it difficult for them to trace its source. Shortly after, the tech genius realizes that the captors used a Faraday cage to block tracking signals. She then calls a supplier, pretending to need it for an implant, and gets directed to an underground nightclub where she can find the item. When she visits the area, she witnesses people in virtual reality headsets experiencing sensual pleasure. As she continues to explore the area, she notices a person heading towards the back door. Intrigued, she decides to follow the stranger, and to her shock, she discovers an unconscious Josephine. As two unidentified men drag the dancer away, the tech genius desperately screams and bangs on the door's gate to stop them.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.